What I have a hard time understanding, and I've said this to people who I know and I love, who I know voted for Trump. How is that not enough of a reason to change your mind on someone's moral compass when it comes to being the leader of our country? More than money.
I think that there's just so much that goes into it. But in general, I think people trust men more than they trust women.
Hello, and welcome to this season of Alter Eagle. I am your host, Laura Crago. Let's keep the conversation going. Now a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. BetterHelp is a platform that makes finding a therapist easier because it's online. Remote therapy sessions, and by filling out a few questions, BetterHelp can match you to a professional therapist in as little as a few days. It's easy to sign up and get matched with a therapist. Click the link in description and receive 10% off your first month of BetterHelp. And by clicking that link, you support this channel. Plus, you can easily switch to a new therapist at no additional cost without stressing about insurance, who's in your network, or anything like that. I was struggling for a long time, and BetterHelp was where I found my therapist, Whitney, who I still see weekly for almost 2 years now. So, if you're struggling like I was, consider online therapy with BetterHelp. Click the link in description or go to betterhelp.com/alter eagle. That's better, HELP.com/alter eagle. There's no better time than now to start your mental health journey. Thank you again, BetterHelp, for supporting this channel. Yeah. I do think a lot of people it was a hard sell for a woman to become president.
Yeah. Okay, so it just made me, this word just popped into my head, and how I was saying earlier that people use words, and the one word that I hear a lot is that the elite. And you look at people who are in politics, who are higher up in politics, and people get real upset about Nancy Pelosi and her investments and everything, and honestly, I don't know that much about all that stuff. But I find that women are held to a higher standard. If a woman does something, it's looked at more harshly. And I did a lot of canvassing, during that time. I mean, not as much as we had some people out there who were just amazing. But canvassing was a cool thing because you got to go out and talk to people. And I think I realized that why it was so important and why, you need to do that, because there's a lot of older folks who are kind of homebound and stuff, and they really appreciate that connection. People are missing that connection. And I think one of the draws that people have towards our current president is that, they may feel very alone. Maybe they don't have a lot of friends, but they feel this camaraderie within that. And they feel like people who maybe are smarter than them, the elite, are just like, I'm college educated, but I'm not from like a family of money. I have deep roots here, and we're like good people and, hardworking blue collar people, but
same,
it's just, I don't know.
It's hard when you hear people, of course I want the price of gas to go down. Yeah. Of course I can't believe I'm even saying eggs.
Listen, there's a bird flu going on.
Yeah.
I lost a couple chickens, 2 of like my favorite chickens last year, and we didn't know why. And I'm wondering now if that's what it was, because we have a lot of wild birds that come in and eat food. But there's a reason that things happen. Things just don't happen for zero reason, And I knew when COVID happened there would be after effects. So immediately, we do things to try to get our economy going, and all that. As a realtor, whenever the interest rate dropped, I mean,
that's when you're like,
we're like doing, but
you got to hit the ground running.
But we knew that wasn't that wasn't going to be forever. And you kind of have to think, well, the interest rates were 2%. When they go back up to normal, you don't think that's going to cause some kind of effect. I mean, the real estate market really was affected by all of that. And we're finally getting to, a period where 5 years out. Well,
feel like it's leveling off a little.
Yeah. But, it's growing pains to get through that, to get past that point. It's not going to be like, oh, COVID's over, restrictions are done, everything's back to normal because of like the supply chain and just all of the stuff that got messed up. So to me, I'm able to look and say, well, I knew that eventually the real estate market would come to a point where it was like, it'd be tough. Like honestly, I thought that we would see some like a foreclosure problem. I really thought because during COVID, people couldn't work, lost their jobs, that kind of thing. I thought we would see more foreclosures than what we did. I figured that it would take a few years, and I'm not completely convinced that we're not going to still see that, and the people who bought when the market was good, when the interest rates are low, those people don't, a lot of them don't want to sell now because they're in such a good position. But anywho, you can't expect a pandemic to happen and not to affect our economy in some kind of way.
So, something we hadn't experienced as ourselves, and the people that experienced that the last time they experienced that, the Great Depression, we're like our grandparents. Yeah. And my grandmother was, she passed away a few years ago at 95, and I just think it's like they survived that, right? They made it through that. And I know for me, like it changed the entire trajectory of my life. I mean, I left a career that I'd been in for 12 years. I lost a lot of money. I mean, for that next year, I wasn't really working. Yeah. And I went through 2 severe injuries from 2 accidents that I had. And then I had bronchial pneumonia, which COVID was still it was 2021, so it was still pretty prevalent. Oh, yeah. And I think that a lot of people don't understand is what ended up happening is, when we went into shutdown mode during 2020, the oil companies, okay, this is where I want to go. This is what I read. The oil companies had to lay so many people off because these gas companies, they didn't have the need for these people to work because no one was going anywhere. There was no travel. People were still traveling, but think about the amount of people who were literally not leaving their homes, who were usually driving to work every single day. Yeah. I lived in Boston, and I barely saw a car drive down the street. Yeah. If we went to the grocery store, we were going once every couple weeks, standing in a giant line outside the grocery store 6 feet apart. So what ended up happening was these companies lay all these people off, like millions of people, okay, get laid off. They don't have jobs. And then when things start to pick back up again, production starts to pick back up again, and the money starts sort of flowing back in. And these guys at the top are like, here's an interesting idea. What if we don't bring all those people back? Yeah. What if we don't bring all those people back? We can put more money in our pockets. Yeah. People are working crazy hours. Yeah. And what are they going to do? They need their jobs. There's people that need jobs, and they're like, well, I've got to go back to the shop. People are getting laid off left and right. So they're not hiring all these people back, and it's taking the cost up because then they're ending up paying overtime, but they still want to make sure that they're putting the money in their pockets. Right. My understanding was, and that's gas prices started to just go up. I know there's so much more to it than that. And I know that's a very simple answer. I just find
it's just way more complex.
It's way more complex than it's Biden's fault.
Or,
Like,
let's have a big strong man back in office and he will fix everything. It's
not one person.
Right.
And that's what I'm having a problem with,
Yeah.
is that we continue to have these conversations where we're like, they're going to fix it. They're going to be the answer. My eggs are going to be affordable. My gas is going to be affordable, and America's going to be great again. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? I think that we're a pretty awesome country anyway. And if you're telling me that they're going to change the way that they're going to totally dismantle FEMA and they're going to require every state to be responsible for themselves, then why are we the United States of America anyway?
Right.
Then each state should be its own country, because
yeah,
that's a conversation that just popped up yesterday, and I'm literally blurting out the only information that I have from that, and it's getting me a little heated, to be perfectly honest, because it's the same as the people who are saying, don't help the Hollywood elite in California. North Carolina still needs help, and it's like, as human beings, just as human beings on this planet, our number one responsibility should be to help people if we can help people.
Yes.
Period. End of story.
Yes.
Were you talking about are you taking your 401k with you when you die? Are you taking your bank account and your Rolls Royce and and all your luxury items with you when we have people who literally don't have anywhere to live?
Yeah.
And we have people who are in this community. I see all this news about the warming centers and Ken Clows and these people who are out there who are on the ground, right?
Yeah.
Making sure that there's people in our community who aren't sleeping on the street. And you're talking to me about the price of your eggs in your giant house.
Yes. And that was one of the things whenever, before the election and I would maybe post something and people would come back at me. And I can say that I am active in the community.
Mm-hmm.
I do things for the community.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in touch with the community. I understand that it's important to, take care of each other and to do these things. So if you're out in the community and you are doing these volunteer things and you're doing good, that's a great thing. And for somebody who sits at home and doesn't volunteer their time, doesn't do anything, just sits there and is a keyboard warrior. Yes, they're, a U.S. citizen, but, you're a member of society and you have your opinion and you can say whatever you want. Freedom of speech, that's great. But you really don't know what you're talking about unless you really do get involved.
Yes.
In some kind of capacity.
Yes, I agree with you.
You have to have some kind of understanding of what's happening and, the whole addiction, thing and the opioid epidemic. And, before COVID hit, that was at the forefront, right?
Yes.
That was like the thing that everybody liked to fight about. And I thought it was funny moving back here, hearing people talk about how horrible Butler was. And Butler's just a drug town and terrible. Yes, there are drugs here, but there are drugs everywhere.
There's drugs everywhere.
I moved back here because it's a safer community. It's a smaller community. It's not as bad as people think.
Mm-hmm. And they're coming from everywhere, the drugs. The drugs are coming from everywhere.
Yeah.
I think there's such a focus on the Mexican border. But let's look at Florida. Let's look at Canada. Let's look at...
Well, why haven't we legalized marijuana? I mean, that's another thing that, to me...
It is proven to get people off of opioids.
Yes.
It's something that's actually proven to get people off of the opioids.
Well, and living in Seattle, I was living there whenever they legalized it. I was there when, it was legalized for recreation, and I voted on that. And I remember, the people who were against it saying this was going to happen and this was going to happen and DUIs were going to go up and this was going to happen. And none of that happened. It was better, it tax money. And, I know in Colorado, they were able to, feed the kids because of their, so I just,
and it's also adding to the economy.
Yeah. To me, there's certain things that just don't make sense. We're so worried about things that don't even affect us. We're just...
Yeah, we're worried about people's sexual orientation and who they're marrying. And there's just so many assumptions out there. And unless you've ever met a trans person or a gay person and befriended them and gotten to know them as a person, it's not my choice what you wear, what you do on Friday night, where you go. I remember my Christmas in Boston. It was right before COVID. I moved to Boston after a breakup. And everyone's like, why are you moving from San Diego to Boston? Literally two polar opposites, especially when it came to weather.
Mm.
And I said, well, the opportunity arose. My company had asked me to relocate. They needed me. And they had a couple city options. And it was also an opportunity for me to get back to the East Coast. My family's all on the East Coast. But I met so many people. And I remember my friend at the time, she's still a friend of mine, but she was a close friend when I moved to Boston. We had been friends in New York City, and then living back in the same city as her was just so exciting, knowing someone as I moved there. And I went with her and her girlfriend at the time to church, and it happened to be, it was a gay church. Like the choir it was all these men and women who were, but it didn't even matter. Like it was a church service on Christmas Eve. Yeah. It was a church. It was a beautiful church in Boston, like in like the heart of downtown Boston. To me, it's just, they're just people. And I keep shifting back to that, but it's important to me.
Jesus is the center of Christianity,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we know throughout the centuries that there has been genocide and wars over religion, Christianity versus Muslim. I mean, this is not something new,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you are a Christian and Jesus is your, North Star, Jesus teaches love, intolerance, and teaches treating your neighbors like you would want to be treated,
Mm-hmm.
and caring for the people who have less than, And so being humble, I just, to me, those are the qualities that I strive for.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter, like say there is no God, or say there really is no Jesus. In the end, to me, it doesn't matter, because I feel good about how I'm living, because I'm treating people well, and I like that. I don't need to read something in the Old Testament. I don't need to read a Bible verse that's telling me something, and you want to interpret some way.
Yes.
I don't need that, because I mean the whole thing is kind of wild, if you take it for, if you read it, I think that if you focus just on the very basic things, just the, treating people like human beings, that's what it all comes down to, and just giving the people benefit of the doubt.
If you look back through history, right? I mean, I'm really into, I just watched a thing on Napoleon Bonaparte. Yeah. Marie Antoinette. I'm like really into these sort of like very period pieces, like, primarily obviously in like Europe, England, all of that, France. It's interesting to me that there was a lot of, they knew that people were starving. They knew the food was rotten.
Oh, yeah.
But it wasn't affecting them.
Mm-hmm.
It was sort of this out of sight, out of mind. Like they would still see they would
cognitive dissonance.
Yes,
is that what that is?
Yes, they would see the people. If they were ever in areas where they would see them, and they were disgusted by them because they were gross and dirty and filthy and full of disease. And it's like, of course they're full of disease. Like they have no access to doctors, to healthcare. Yeah. They're barely surviving. You're giving them rotten food, and then you're wondering why they're angry.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's almost this like there's always been conflict. The point of me bringing all this up and rambling on like an idiot, I'm not even making any sense. I'm like, what? I'm also like still just my head from this walking pneumonia. I'm like, as I'm sitting here, I'm like, I wish I was laying down.
Oh, yeah.
You know how you feel? And I'm starting to feel hot.
Yeah.
Anyways, I just don't get it. It's like when you see those stories of animals being rescued, right?
Yeah.
And you hear a story of like a dog like dragging its hind legs because it was hit by a car, and people just continue to go past it.
Yeah.
I couldn't. I literally could not.
Yeah.
I would have to stop. I would have to stop and
put that animal into my car
Yeah.
and immediately find help.
Yeah.
I mean, I've gone out into the middle of the road and moved. I know they're dead, but I've moved them all the way off of the road before and taken photos and put them on the pages. Like, is anyone able to
Right.
come? And we want to make sure that the family knows. And if it did have a family, it gets scanned, and like I moved it off the road. It's like a thing that I can't not do. So it's like, what is that?
Some people are sociopaths. Some people have no empathy. And it's hard as empathetic people to understand that. But people have different motivations. And
Yeah.
I've found that the more authentic I am, the more I live my life, how I feel like I should be living. I feel like I'm introduced to people in all along the same wavelength, right?
Mm-hmm.
I meet good people, and then the people I meet introduce me to more good people, and you might have to say goodbye to some people along the way, because I've had an evolution of friends over the years. Some stick around, some go.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to learn in life that letting go can be one of the best things you can do, because really, in 100 years, we're all going to be dead. What really matters is that you feel loved, that you have people that love you, that you're living a life that, is worthwhile to you,
Mm-hmm.
that's fulfilling to you. And so I'm 43. I'm at the age where I feel like this is my time to be me, and to be okay with people not liking me, or
Mm-hmm.
here.
Yeah.
As somebody who, is always a people pleaser, and, I don't like to disappoint people, that kind of thing. You get to a point where you learn that people are not on the same level as you, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I told you how I love my animals. Like, animals are a big part of my life. I have dogs and I have chickens, but my chickens, I watch my chickens, and animals are much like people, you have some.
I heard that chickens have personalities.
They do. And, like roosters, some roosters are kind and caring and attentive roosters, and then some are jerks, and some hens are like submissive and like the rooster, whatever the rooster says. And then there's other hens that are like, get off of me, and they'll scream, and I like hear someone screaming, hear a chicken scream, I look out the window, and like this chicken's running away from a rooster.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But everybody has a different personality. Everybody has a different life experience. Everybody's gonna look at things differently, and that's what's cool, is that we can all learn from each other. And if somebody's not willing to be that way, it's just, you can't dwell on the negative. You can't dwell on what people, somebody doesn't like me or this or that. Like, to me, it's just important to focus on the positive. And I wanted to say too, you were saying like, what can we do?
Yep.
I'm definitely a hype girl, and that's one of the things that I've found that really gives me joy, is elevating my friends and like, letting people know that I care about them, and really kind of letting people shine. When I was in the GFWC Junior Women's Club of Butler, and I was the president for 2 years, I had all these women in this club, and they were all so different, but the coolest thing that I found was that everybody had so many different talents. So we could take a club of, 30 women who are all volunteers, and we're all moms, and not all of us, but, we're busy. We have jobs and this and that, but everybody has these different talents. And if you let people run with things that they care about, and you let them do these things, like, they can do amazing things. And you get a group of people together, and you feel good about yourself, you feel good about your friends, and it's a ripple effect.
Mm-hmm.
So I think going forward, I joined Pennsylvania Now, the National Organization for Women.
Okay.
Getting more involved with that. I was talking to my friend last night. We were talking about, going forward, what we should do.
Mm-hmm.
And she said to me, I really think we need to start elevating each other. And I said, I think you're right, and I think what we can do is, I have this group of women in Butler that, I've met all these women, and just mind-blowing the backgrounds of these women and how talented, and, we have doctors and just all different kinds of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think highlighting them, sharing them with the community, sharing their stories, sharing stories and just different things like that, and just really lifting each other up,
Mm-hmm.
focusing on that, drowning out the noise, because all that negativity, all the nastiness, all of that, if you are always focused on that, it's going to drag you down.
Yes.
So just being intentional with where you put your energy and your effort, I mean, that's really all you can do. And as somebody, who's had issues with, codependency, my husband's in recovery, he's an alcoholic, you learn different things about people. And in one of the things you learn when someone's in recovery is you can't control them. You didn't cause it. You can't control it. You can't cure it. It's not yours. It's not your burden to bear, And so along with everything that we've talked about, all these things that are so hard to understand, it's not our job to bear that burden. To me, my job is to be the good person that I am, to try to influence people in the best way that I can, in the most effective way that I can.
Yeah.
We've talked about possibly me running for a political
It's interesting
position,
you just said that. Yeah.
I don't know if that's the most effective thing I don't know. I care about politics because I care about human beings.
How are you going to know until you try?
But
I mean, I think that can be a scary place to go to, but it's an important place.
Yeah.
And we need people who are willing to put themselves out there and be an advocate for the community and to elevate people. I mean, I think you said it so eloquently, and whenever you said that, elevating each other, I just thought, wow, that's so interesting, because that's kind of my idea too, is if I could just get a bunch of people in a room together and knowing that they're all from different.
Yeah. So, okay. So,
but not having that be the focus.
Well, why, with this podcast opportunity, what you do, I mean, that's actually kind of a good idea. You could do something like that where you bring people in and I don't know, but when I worked with my friend,
it almost feels like an experiment too, in a way, because it's I want us to take these next 4 weeks. Okay. We're going to meet weekly for 4 weeks. We're going to sit in here. I'm going to record our conversations, and each week we will have different things. Now I'm going off of a book, right? So I'm going to start with a book club.
Yeah.
So it's essentially going to be, the first book I have, I think I showed it to you last week. I'm not saying it now because I'm not putting it out yet, but different books. There's probably going to be a book that I really don't want to read, but I'm going to read it in order to understand a little bit more of maybe where someone's coming from.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to, I think sometimes we focus, and I didn't finish my sentence, but I think sometimes we focus so much on, or Trump, Harris, right? Mm-hmm. And we're so hyper focused on these two people. And I mean, for me, I was very hopeful that she would be elected. I was very hopeful, and I was feeling that uneasiness, but I was trying not to sort of put all my focus into that. I was like, nope, just stay positive. There's only so much I can do, right?
Yeah.
I can go out and I can vote. I don't believe, though, that I have the power to sway people who were very much dead set on voting the other way.
Right.
And then the people who don't want to talk about it at all.
Yeah.
Like they don't want to talk about it. And those sometimes are the people that I want to talk to because I want to understand, why don't you want to talk about it? This does affect you.
Yeah.
And is it because you're scared to be perfectly honest about who you're voting for, that you know who you're voting for, or that you're like not sure? I've even met people that are like, I don't think I'm going to vote because and it's like, that gives me anxiety and stress.
Well, I guess it depends on a lot of things. How do the policies affect us directly? And do people even realize how certain policies are affecting them directly?
Mm-hmm.
So if they have, if they're kind of out of touch, the taxes thing is interesting to me,
Yes.
because people seem to be really confused about how that all works. And I know that, people are upset about like the last 4 years and stuff, but we've been on like the same tax plan since
Before Biden.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just different things like that. I think that people just
And it takes time
confused.
it takes time for policies to implement, to actually go into effect.
We are
It's
such an immediate gratification society. Yes.
That's exactly what I was just thinking.
And that's part of it. I do think that that's part of it.
Yeah.
Because the day after the election, when I was like crying and all upset, I went to Dunkin'. There's a line at Dunkin'. I'm like, well, Dunkin's still here. Like it's the world's still revolving. But yeah, I mean, I can drive 5 minutes down the road and get a drink handed to me out the window and not even get out of my car, and I pay $3.80 and I'm on my way.
Mm-hmm.
That's the society that we live in, and it's convenient.
Mm-hmm.
We love the convenience. So, like losing weight, everybody wants that immediate,
that's such a thing right now.
Well, now we have the weight loss drugs,
which
I think is a good thing. It's better than starving yourself or going on keto and eating sticks of butter. Oh my God. I used to work at Starbucks and people.
Yeah. But I mean, the other problem is our food. There are things that are being put into our food that don't need to be there.
Right.
There's a lot of fillers. There's things that are affecting our hormones, which are causing us and our children to have ADHD and learning disabilities and attention, deficits and
chemicals.
And the chemicals. And, someone showed me once 2 boxes, and I want to say it was a cereal, and it was like Canada, same cereal as ours. And the amount of ingredients, the difference in the amount of ingredients. And why do I have to pay more for organic? Why do I have to pay more for something that doesn't have all that crap in it? Why do I have to be concerned with Googling words on the back of something and knowing that MSG, and this is like a path that I've been going down recently because I realized that I've had a intolerance to it because I ended up being hospitalized twice it was both in 2023. Yeah, in 2023, I had Chinese with my cousin from this restaurant. And I woke up that night. Actually, it wasn't that night. It was the next morning. And I'll never forget, like I shot up out of bed. And I remember I sat up and I felt like I was having a heart attack. I was sweating, but it was like a cold sweat. Mm-hmm. And I could feel my heart like literally beating out of my chest, but I had vertigo.
Oh, God.
Like the room was going this way. And I remember my body was going this way. And I was like, I'm going to be sick. And I feel like I'm going to pass out. Like I was terrified because I live alone.
Right.
And so I just grabbed my phone and I called my neighbor. And she's always like, she's not really like a morning person. So she's like, hi. And I was like, I need you to come over here right now. She's like, what? And I said, I'm going to pass out. And I like dropped my phone and I started to run, not realizing that I couldn't run because I was having vertigo. And I ran into my dresser and I fell down on the floor and ended up crawling into the bathroom where I proceeded to get sick, like violently sick. And then I couldn't stand up or open my eyes for like probably a good hour. Like I was bent over and I was leaning over the table, and every time I opened my eyes, everything was just spinning. Oh my God. And even the closed eyes, but if I stayed leaning forward. So I was leaning on my dining room table. My neighbor comes over. I ended up having to go to the hospital. They couldn't figure out what was going on. They did all these scans and blood tests, and they're like, we have no idea what's going on. Well, then it happened again like 2 weeks later. and I'd eaten Chinese food both times from the same restaurant. And the second time it happened, it was in the middle of the night. And I actually was still teaching yoga at the time, and I had to teach a 6 a.m. class. And I'm freaking out. And I started doing research and found that MSG doesn't just say MSG. It's all these different, they give it all these fancy words. And there's a list of them.
Okay.
And it's pretty much in everything. It's like a flavor enhancer.
Yeah.
They actually sell this stuff at Costco or Sam's Club. It was Sam's Club I was at a few weeks ago in the seasoning section. And I looked at it and I put it in. I was like, that is literally a bottle of MSG.
Mm-hmm.
And there's
like Accent or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's not good for us.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, it's approved because it's only small quantities.
Yeah.
Quantities. I'm like, but it's in everything.
Yeah.
When it's in everything and we're constantly consuming it. And then yesterday I went to Aldi's and I saw, well, not yesterday, but I forget. And there's a new Wendy's near this Aldi's in Harmony. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, another fast food restaurant.
Yeah.
And then there's a Taco Bell. And I'm like, we have it so backwards.
Oh, yeah.
It's so backwards.
So,
and then we wonder why we're sick.
So, like, all the food additives, yeah, it's a problem. Monsanto is a problem. I mean, living in Seattle, this was something that I was very crunchy for a while. I'm not as crunchy as I was. Mm-hmm. But we can go into a grocery store and we can get fresh produce and we can get fresh meat and we can get rice, grains, whatever you want. You don't have to buy processed foods.
Mm-mm.
It's just what we're used to.
Yeah.
And it's what, the cereal. And it, like I said, Monsanto and all these, huge food conglomerates, they control what goes in our bodies when we're eating those things, And even if you go to like Whole Foods or somewhere that's like healthy, 3/4 of their food's processed too.
You'll find stuff. Yeah. You will find it everywhere.
It's still better. Well,
it goes back to instant gratification.
So I don't
but then it's also like so you're a parent. Okay. I'm not a parent, so I can't speak to this. So you not only have 3 children, right? You have a husband. You have animals that you're taking care of. You're an entrepreneur. You have a business. You have all these things. And I think for some people, it does become a matter of like, I've got to run the kids here and here, and I've got to get them something to eat. I forgot this. And it's just hard.
Yeah.
But it's like, why have we put so many requirements or stipulations, or we continue to stack the odds against us?
Because of money.
There you go.
Yeah. I mean, that's really what it is.
And social media doesn't help because you see, and I see a lot of this too, and I look at these and you'll see someone that's like, I made $10,000 my first month. And I'm like, doing what?
Yeah, I know.
You really went on,
Clickbait.
So you went on Canva, or you went on Canva and you created a template. And like that, you created a template and you went on Etsy and you sold it and you made $10,000?
No, because
you're consistently creating something, right?
Well, and you're probably also running ads, because I have an Etsy store and I do I do run ads on there, but like you have to spend a lot of money to make a lot of money, and there's no way.
And some people don't have that to start.
That's hard. The most money I've made since starting my Etsy store, so I get paid bi-weekly, and I made a design that sold really well before Halloween, and I think I made like I got like $750 like 2 weeks in a row. That was the most that that was good.
Yeah.
But that was like finding a design that was like popular right before Halloween that hit. So it's trickier than that. So and I saw those ads too for like the wrapping paper, because I made wrapping paper actually for my Etsy store. And then,
that's cool.
And then they sold out. So they're running all these ads and then the wrapping paper gets popular and sells out. So that, they're all, they want you to buy into their program to learn how to do the social media stuff, which is fine. But yeah, it's not that easy. I mean, I've been growing my social media for years. I've been doing, all of my social media marketing for years. And the last year and a half, 2 years, I've really been working on like digital marketing and making digital products. And, I have a sourdough group and all of those things. It's hard. It's a lot of work, but maybe it's just because I'm ADD and I'm like really difficult at being organized and tasks. But it's a lot.
It's constant.
You have to be extremely disciplined, and you have to. It's a lot. Yeah. So it's not just like this easy thing to do a podcast. People are like, oh, I'm going to do a podcast. It's not that simple.
It's not that simple. I appreciate you saying that. And I think for me, like there's so many things. If I had more time, I would sit down and go back through every single episode.
Right.
And I'd pull out the things that I'd want to improve on. And I'm constantly judging myself. I mean, I grew up dancing, and I danced professionally, so I lived in a world of criticism.
So
and then
you're
I was
like a perfectionist also.
Yeah, and then I lived in the fitness world. And not just the fitness world, but I mean New York City. I worked at the top bar studio and top spin studio. SoulCycle was the first boutique fitness studio ever.
Yeah.
Ever. Even before Peloton became really popular.
Well, let's talk about growing up in the 90s.
Well, yeah. Right?
And all the models and how clothes fit.
Well, and if you look back on models from the 90s, they were all tall and skinny, right? That was it.
But you know what they didn't tell us is that not everybody's bodies are like that.
Yeah, because it's genetics.
Yes.
And there's so many different factors that come into play. I mean, as a woman in her 40s, my body has significantly changed.
But I've never been a small person, and I never will be a small person, even when I am at my like thinnest or whatever. I'm not, just my body structure is not like other people. I'm built different, right? And I had to explain that to my daughter, who's 11. My daughter's 11. She's wearing my clothes already. She's my size already. She's not quite as tall as me, but I was the same way. Girls sometimes develop faster, and I mean, I've looked like this since high school. I've been the same size since I was 15.
Wow.
So I've looked like a woman since I was 15, and where there's other girls who are like half my size in these tiny little sticks. Boys that hard on your psyche. And also having a parent. So my mom she's a boomer, but she was 20 when she had me, so she's very young. But her generation, I mean, my grandma was always like, suck in your tummy, look good for your husband, do your makeup, make sure that kind of old school kind of thinking. So my mom was just very critical of herself, and therefore critical of me. And my mom was a naturally thin person, and I love my mom. This is not like, but my mom was genetically different than me growing up. So it was hard for her to understand like why, I wasn't naturally thin like her. Like I struggle with that stuff, and in the 90s growing up, it was hard. I mean, I'm sure it's hard now, but like I tell my kids, I'm like, look, your body is the way your body is, and you need to appreciate your body for the things it does for you, and you're never going to look like that girl. So don't compare yourself to her, because you will drive yourself crazy, and it's not, it's not good.
Well, it's hard to, as I remember, I was like the beanpole girl.
Yeah.
I was the girl that was just my genetics.
Exactly.
And it wasn't just because I was a dancer or because I was this or that. There were periods where I knew my body well enough to know that there were times where I wasn't entirely healthy.
Sure.
Or fit.
Sure.
And I knew my body. I am, from being an athlete, and I was a cyclist, and I was a runner. I've always been fit my whole adult life. And the past couple years, a lot has changed for me in that. I've dealt with a lot of different injuries and like spinal stuff, especially. I mean, a week from today, I'm getting an epidural in my back for the second time, a nerve block, because of everything that's going on with this completely degenerated disc in my back, which is... But me, I want to get back on my bike. I want to climb Kilimanjaro. I have things that I want to do physically. I like being strong.
Yeah.
And what my body ends up doing is when I start eating very, and I don't want to say, it's not that I'm like, I love pizza, I love burgers, I'll drink beer, you know what I mean?
Sure.
But I do like how I feel when I'm strong and when I'm
Same.
healthy.
Same.
So for me, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And it's like, why aren't we using those types of words? Why aren't we
Yes.
using the words like strong and healthy?
Yes.
And, you know, it's about longevity. It's about,
Yes.
I want to be in my 80s and I want to be able to take this table and pick it up and move it over there like I did today.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes. And
I don't care, like, does it feel good when you look at yourself and you feel good about how your body looks?
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
but that's different for everyone.
Yes.
And I remember I had a woman one time come up to me, and this was during my fitness career. And there were times where I was like ripped, jacked,
Yeah.
because I was doing a lot, but I was also consuming just like crazy amounts of calories.
yeah.
Okay. And people would be like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm also burning. You do realize that you have to eat in order to be able to do what I'm doing. I have to be able to eat.
Yeah.
So it's being mindful of that. And I was learning this weird balance of, I had this, when I did my cross country bike ride, I remember this woman, this company that sponsored me in Boulder, Colorado, when I talked to one of their nutrition specialists, she was one of the top people. She said to me, she's like, listen, you're doing something really, really intense and you're riding like crazy amounts of miles on your bike. You have a day, if you finish and you're craving pizza, she's like, you need to eat pizza. There's something in your body. She's like, whether it's the red sauce or whether it's the cheese or the carbs, whatever it is, your body is craving that. She's like, and when you're doing something like this, you have to listen to that.
Mm-hmm.
And there would be days where I would, most days it was pasta. And one time someone made this like shrimp scampi, and I was like, that is not the kind of pasta I want. Like I want like red sauce
Yeah.
and meatballs and garlic bread and a salad. Like I always wanted red sauce. I don't know why, but it was something that she taught me. And I just remembered someone said to me one day, they were like, oh, wow, you look good. You're skinny. And I looked at them and I was like, I don't want to be referred to as skinny.
Yeah.
Because if I got on a scale right now and you saw how much I actually weighed because of the muscle on my body,
Yes.
you'd be like, there's no way. I'm like, to
Yes.
me, it's not about that.
Yes.
There is like a healthy, like your BMI, like I
Sure.
want to be healthy because I come from a background of my father died from heart disease at the age of 47. Both my grandfather and my great grandfather both died before they made it to 50 from heart disease. Okay. My oldest brother had to have 4 stents put in.
Oh my gosh.
He was at a gas pump and could tell something was wrong. And my sister-in-law rushed him to the hospital, and they realized in that moment that his heart was like 98% blocked. And he had the surgery, and it saved his life. But there are changes he needs to make in his life
Yeah.
in order to continue. Yeah, they can go in there and they can put the stents in and open up your blood vessels and put you on blood thinners, but that's a Band-Aid.
Correct.
What we're not recognizing, and this is why you and I are having this conversation, which I'm really loving right now, is that when it comes down to talking about like who we're voting for in the government and stuff, and it's like, why have we gotten to a point where they're literally dictating what is going into our body and what we're doing with our bodies?
Yeah.
State, federal, I don't care.
Yeah.
Nobody should be telling me. And I deserve to know what that is and why it's in my food.
Right. I agree.
And I can guess. I can guess why these things have been, because it's like, oh, well, we can make more quantities and we can make
Correct.
more money.
Yes. That's
Because
like
if we
the
put these
pesticide.
fillers in, if we put this stuff in, then we can make more of it and we can sell more of it. And these things have addictive properties to it. So
Right.
then we know kids are going to become addicted and they're
Oh,
going to
yeah.
want more of it.
Flavorings
The
and
flavorings
stuff.
and
Yeah.
the sugars and I picked up these supplements the other day. I just wanted to look at them, right? It was like vitamin C. And because I've been sick, I'm like just overdosing on vitamin C and D3 and all these things,
I take
zinc and
supplements too.
yeah. But I picked it up right away, and the gummies are the ones that I'm always like suspicious of. I pick it up, and the first thing I see is like it's like sugar. It's like 4 ingredients, and I'm like, what? And the first ingredients are what is the most prevalent in that product.
Right.
That's how they put the ingredients are in order of the most is the first thing, right? So like if I'm making cookies and let's say 50% or 70% of my recipe is flour, then that's the first ingredient, right?
And salt will be last.
Salt would be last, yeah.
Or the preservatives.
Yeah, or the red 3 or whatever. Bye, peace out, you know. Yeah, soy lectin. I said something to my mom one day and I said, you need to cut soy. She's like, I don't eat soy. And I said, I want you to pull something out of your cabinet right now and look at the ingredients. There's soy lectin in it. I go, that's a filler. That's soy. You don't need that. It's actually, I think it's a hormone disruptor too.
Yeah.
So then it's already on top of the things that our bodies are already naturally doing. So then I start to go to where I'm like, okay, so then what it's doing is it's causing me to be sick. Mm-hmm. So then I have to go to the doctor.
Yeah.
And I have to have insurance to go to the doctor.
Right.
So when I didn't have a job where I had insurance and I was doing self-pay, my copay was awesome. But my monthly, what I had to pay monthly just to have insurance was literally outside of what I could afford.
That's how.
But I was doing it.
Yeah, that's basically been my life since what, 2013? I don't know, whenever all that changed. I remember working for USIS and having to start paying for my insurance when I never had to pay for it before.
Mm-hmm. So it's this question of why are we having conversations about, well, you know, you were born a girl, so you're going to have to live a girl the rest of your life, when you're telling Bruce Jenner, who clearly is someone who was this phenomenal athlete, phenomenal beyond, and he comes out in his 50s. He was in his 50s when he came out as Caitlyn Jenner.
Something like that, but it was like a back and forth his whole life.
Yes, but he remembers having these intense feelings of shame and like he was deceiving everyone as he's standing up there getting these medals at the Olympics
right,
as a man.
Yeah.
And then here he is coming out and he wants to live his life as a woman. How does that affect my life? How does that affect me? It doesn't affect me. Do I have to be friends with him? Do I have to read about him? Do I have to follow him on social media? Do I have to believe everything he says? No, I don't. So why are we having these conversations in the first week of a new administration about gender when we have people in this country that don't have health care? When we have people in this country who don't know where they're going to get their next meal. And yeah, there's a lot of resources out there. Or people who don't know where they're going to live. What is happening now with the California wildfires is the rent is going up.
Right.
And the people that can afford it are desperate to pay whatever they can. And people are paying up front for a year to rent a place. Astronomical, like $50,000 a month, insane amounts of money. And then there's people that are like, well, I can't do that.
Yeah, there's...
So having moved to New York and having moved to LA, and literally every time you make a big move like that, and you've made big moves, you're literally starting over. Even if you take stuff with you, you're completely starting over. It's like, not only are you like, okay, how do I get from here to here? When I went from living in New York to California, I had to get a car. I didn't have a car in New York. You know, there's so many things that people don't realize when you make a big move like that, and we're just making it even harder. And I really feel like I want to just go on this tangent about the insurance companies and the pharmaceutical companies. But it's just such a
it's a lot, and I think that, well, you know, remember when Bernie, you know, emerged and he was talking about the oligarchy and, you know, all of that, and I don't know what's going to happen, but, you know, we have powerful, wealthy men in positions of power and influence right now. And, you know, they're going to want to put their priorities first, you know, whatever benefits them. And as we know, Trump's taxes are like his number, you know, he doesn't pay taxes. He doesn't want to pay taxes. So like, that's, you know, part of it. But they don't have the same concerns as other people. They don't have the same problems, and they don't care. So until we get to a point where people are sick and tired of it. I mean, people are sick and tired of it. That's why they elected him, because they want him to do something. But doing all these things, these trivial things that are just for show, just for like shock and awe, that are just because this is how I feel, and screw you who don't, you know, people who don't feel the same way, you know, this is how it's going to be. This is my America. This is my vision of whatever. You know, that's not, to me, a leader. How are you a leader for all if you're dictating to people, well, you have to be this or this? You know.
And so many people don't see it that way.
Yeah. Well, you know,
they're like, well, we want affordable this, affordable that. And I'm like, well, so do we.
Yeah.
But that's what we're talking about. Healthcare.
Well, why don't we
Who cares about the price of eggs if I can't afford to go to the doctor and buy the medicine that I need?
Yeah. But why can't we prioritize, like, the healthy living, too? Because we don't.
Yes,
You
absolutely.
know? Like,
1,000%.
why don't we have more incentives to get a gym membership or to, you know, I mean, and there has been some more, but even like, you know, chiropractor kind of stuff, just things that are more preventative and more, you know, non-Western medicine kind of thing. There needs to be a balance of both, right?
Yeah.
And,
well, apparently that's why he has RFK.
yeah.
But we both put our finger up at the same time. It's like, but he was going on this whole tangent about removing fluoride from the water, and everyone's like, yay. And I'm like, what? What? But we need fluoride for our teeth, correct?
Too much fluoride is poisonous. So
yes,
you
I
know,
understand that. But also it's like, okay, but is that the biggest problem?
No.
Okay, so that's not the top problem. Like, why are we not making prioritizing?
What are the top problems?
I mean, I think universal health care should be the top priority.
I agree.
Because with that, we're talking about mental health. Well, and that coincides with the homeless.
And that's the other thing. Yeah, that goes along with the preventative care. You know, I've been seeing a counselor for the last year and a half, 2 years, whatever it's been, and I pay out of pocket $80 every month because it's important to me.
Yes.
And I've seen people's attitudes online towards therapy, and it's still like, you know, you only need therapy if you're messed up, or not everybody needs therapy. And it had me thinking about, you know, people who are in recovery, like people who go to AA.
That's therapy.
It's the same thing. It's talking about your feelings and your emotions and processing things.
Yeah.
And being vulnerable, right?
And getting someone else's perspective.
Yes.
And being able to, it's also like something about talking about what happened. Mm-hmm. It's almost like vomit.
And validation too, because I can talk to my counselor and be like, this is what happened. You know, and she can kind of reflect on it and be like, no, you're not crazy. No, that was not your fault.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Well, it's just so.
But people don't understand that. You know, people don't see it that way. It's not, I think right now there's so many different generations with different viewpoints.
Yeah, I think we are coming to a very big.
Yeah, but, you know, mental health is definitely. So the cool thing about like TikTok and Instagram, all those things, it has brought mental health into the forefront. Mm-hmm. And I love that you can get on there and there are experts on there talking about these things. And you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
They're talking about something that I didn't know that was actually a thing. Or like my mom started sending me these reels of like ADHD stuff. And she's sending me these and I'm like, yeah. And she's like, you know, she's realizing at 63 years old that that's her. And and she's realizing, oh my gosh, like, and me too, you know, like all my life I knew it was different. I knew I had trouble doing certain things. I knew I had, you know, certain things I was really good at, certain things I wasn't. Mm-hmm. And then when you realize that these things that people made you feel bad about, like, you know, being late, or, you know, the things that are part, you know, those things, they make you feel like a horrible person, or like you're like me. It's
the black and white.
Yeah.
It's like, this is right, this is wrong. And you're like, I'm a human.
I'm a dumb girl. I'm a dumb blonde. Like when growing up, I always got all the blonde jokes and how, you know, like dumb blonde jokes, you know, and I'm an airhead.
You're like, ha, ha, ha.
And I'm ditzy and I'm all these things.
I'm ditzy.
Well, I have ADD. I just, all the things that's me, you know, and, without social media, I don't know if my mom or I would have like really come to the understanding that's like, okay, yeah, you know, and it's okay to talk to somebody or to get help for it or to try to understand it better so that you can be more productive.
Or
and
be a better person. That's the whole goal,
Yeah.
is to be the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
And that's why we do these things. It's like, I'm not saying that you're a bad person because you don't go to therapy.
Right.
I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying this is what I do. Can I just like live and let live? There's sort of this weird thing. And there's just so many topics that I feel bamboozled at times.
Me too.
And I think with the media, it's hard. And I work under the umbrella of the Butler Eagle.
Yeah.
And I, even on the, PA for Democracy page, I don't ever comment. I see people's concerns and I see people making comments, and I so often want to reach out and be like, do you want to talk? Like, do you need to like, because I've learned from being here, and I've said this before, and I've talked to Tammy about this, that journalists have very interesting brains.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when we were writing scripts when I first got here. I had to do coverage for the elections that we were having last year. So when I say last year, we're obviously thinking like November 2024. I'm talking November 2023.
Right.
More local things like that. And I remember, when we're writing the scripts, as they were writing something, they said, but when you say it, it sounds different than when you're reading it.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, oh. And I said, so we have to reword this so it makes sense the way that you're actually speaking the words. You're not going to write an article and then read it to me, because it comes across differently. The way that our
like
brains,
a book versus a movie.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's so interesting how I think that we are just lost in translation a lot of the times, but a lot of us are immediately on the defense or immediately reacting or immediately have an opinion or immediately like, that's wrong. I don't like that.
Yes.
So that's why I'm trying. And we did bring a lot of this up. I did bring up like the things that the current the new administration is starting to talk about. And it's like, is that what's being portrayed to us on purpose to sort of make us, to cause this, sort of reaction and to see how people are going to react? Is that's what's going on? Or what's really happening? And why can't someone just tell us that you care about universal health care and that these things are important to you, and that the reason why, like, why can't we just keep it straight?
Mm-hmm. Because we're human beings, and we're
But the people that are, it's like, football, for instance, like we come from a very, very big area where football is Steelers football is like,
yeah.
I mean, I've gone through my periods of like watching every single game and always being in black and gold and, doing that. And then seasons where like I haven't watched any games.
Mm-hmm.
Because life,
yeah.
But why is it that, we're so, these guys are getting paid this money and they can't even get it together, and it's like, okay, but like, you're not doing it. Like,
it's so easy to judge.
It's so easy to judge when we don't know.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it was so important to me last year to go to the State of the Union, to be in a place where like I was around I was with Republicans,
people with different viewpoints,
and I had friends who were like, wow, and I'm like, okay,
this is where
calm down.
This is the future. No, this is what needs to happen.
But this is what needs to happen.
Yes.
And I also had someone who genuinely was willing to have conversations with me, hard conversations with me, who invited me. And I thought, this is a once in a lifetime experience. I had people who just straight up stopped following me on Instagram. And I was like, bye.
Well, that's
if you don't know me as a person and you're willing to just make a judgment off of one thing, because
how are you going to ever get anywhere if you are just, you stand against the wall and you say, I'm not budging, and this person stands against the wall, I'm not budging, and we're not budging. And that's why we are where we are.
I just want to thank you.
Yeah.
You gave me a lot of time today. We've sat in, this is a 2-part episode, so there's 2 parts of this. And it's always important for people that are listening to know that this was a very fluid conversation. We just kind of talked about whatever. I think there's so much more we could talk about, but it's important for us to be able to put this out into the community and see who might either say, interesting, okay, well, here's an example of what you were mentioning, or we're just trying to get a conversation started for people to understand where we are coming from, because you and I come from a lot of the same place, especially when it's for politics. I'd say,
I'll say that, my Facebook group that I do have a Facebook group, and it's Butler, PA for Progress and Democracy. But it's just a group of women and men. There's men in there. But if you were feeling like, you're having a hard time, you're feeling alone, one of the things that I wanted to mention was whenever I was canvassing, we would find a lot of times that younger women who lived at home with their parents, like their dads would intervene. We also saw poll watchers saw men dictating to their wives who to vote for, things like that. So I saw a need for connection because people were feeling so scared and alone, and so that's why I created this Facebook group. But I just want to invite anybody who's feeling scared, alone, worried, to join my group and to join us, just because, lifting each other up, having each other's backs, being able to talk about things, and not feel like we're being judged or, criticized, So it's a safe space. So if anybody wants to join, feel free to join. Made connections in this town of other like-minded people. When I moved back here, I felt kind of isolated because I didn't have any friends here. I'd been gone for so long, and even though I know people here, it's you're gone 11 years, you're out of the community. It's different. So reestablishing myself into the community, making friends, meeting people, that was really important to me because I care about people. So if I can do anything to help gather people, organize people, empower people, that's what I want to do. And I don't know, what my future holds. And I don't know, specifically this group, what will happen. But I do think that we have a lot of opportunity in front of us, and I want to use the future for good and lifting each other up and all of that stuff. Yeah. So thank you for having me on.
You're so
and
welcome.
Giving me a voice. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Thank you, Heidi. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Alter Eagle. Join me every Monday for a new episode, and be sure to click subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Follow us on Instagram at Alter Eagle Podcast. Until next time, stay safe, stay hopeful, stay kind.